Hi, Janet.
Hi there, Erin. Hey, Giselle,
Hi.
Raquel. Erin, did you find out anything about what you want me, how you want me to proceed?
I did not get a call back, but I do have word from the applicant that they're looking to continue this evening. So I was going to update our group. Hi, Ron. As soon as we have enough members here,
Okay.
guide everybody to get started, and then we'll be hopefully entertaining a motion to continue.
Howdy.
Hi there, Erin.
Hi, Bob.
I'm still looking forward to having a learning session with you at some point.
Yes, and I'd like to schedule that as soon as Carol returns to the country.
Makes sense. Yes,
My apologies that we weren't able to get that done before she left.
it's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it done, I'm certain.
Well, yeah, we need to. It's important. So let's see. Have everybody. Our town's website is down, so I'm getting multiple emails from people trying to log in to watch via Zoom, via YouTube. So I'm just copying and pasting this Zoom link here for anybody to join via email. So hopefully that can be resolved.
Mine shows as 11 participants, so somebody's on.
Yes, we do have attendees, Ron, yes. But if I just tried to go to the town's website to look at the agenda, and it says the server is down. So I'm hopefully
Well, it should all be on our phones. We got it from Maria and you. Or
yes. I'm meaning more members of the public. So this evening is a little different because we have 3 of our regular members not here. So I'm going to initiate recording here, and so we need to follow Robert's rule and ask the commission. I'm going to ask a member to open the meeting, and then I'm hoping that one of you can nominate a chair for this evening, since we don't have our chair or our secretary present this evening. They're both going to be absent. And so once the commission votes to have a chair for this evening, then I would ask that the chair appoint our 2, or seat, I should say, our 2 alternates, Michael Bugda and Robert O'Connor, for the remainder of the meeting. So if anyone would like to open the meeting on behalf of the commission and make a nomination for a chair, Whoever, or whoever's comfortable, perhaps Giselle or Ron as our members who have been here for a couple of meetings to kind of know the general format here. And I'll help guide you through as we proceed.
Well, I think Giselle is our senior member, so I moved to nominate her as chair for the evening.
So I accept.
Is there, yeah?
Sorry, I second that.
And Ron, just to clarify, you were opening the meeting too, right?
Happy to do that. Does that take a motion or not? I forget. I didn't think it did. To
No, I don't
welcome.
So I think we just need to kind of get us a leader here today.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think it's November 17th, but I'm not sure. And we have members absent, but a lot of new members will fill in. And I move, if Giselle so accepts, to be the chairman. She has the most tenure and experience, I believe.
So Erin, do I accept now and appoint?
Yep, I'm Giselle. I heard. I think it was Janet who seconded, right?
Yes, I
Okay.
did.
And just a motion from all of you that you're all in agreement, and Giselle, hearing that you accept. That's wonderful. Thanks. Now we can get going. We haven't had
Well,
this in a while.
I'm not sure who can vote until they're seated, but I've got to, but be that as it may. I think by acclamation,
Don't get
Giselle.
Right.
Right. So am I seating two alternates?
So we need to seat Michael Bugda and Robert O'Connor for this meeting.
Okay, so I move to seat Michael Wagner and who's the other one?
Robert O'Connor.
Robert O'Connor this evening, November 17th, to our P and Z Commission meeting.
Okay.
And we might say they're taking Carol and whose position would be
Elliot and Shona are both absent, so either one of those, yes. Okay, Madam Chair, for this evening, I do have the legal notice that I can read for this evening. We had notice is hereby given that the commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom online webinar. Attendees may join the webinar through either the link or call-in information below. The webinar ID is 915-8196-6735, and the password is 452138. The following applications will be heard: 22-25 coastal site plan, map 31, lot 38-1, zone R2, owner applicant, town of Madison, special exception permit modification to convert 21,504 square feet of undeveloped area into enclosed dog park. This application does include a coastal site plan review. Application 22-27, petition for regulation amendment. Petitioner is Fraser Lulage. Petition for text amendment to Madison zoning regulations, section 32, plan development district. And public hearing regarding opting out of accessory apartment provisions per Public Act number 21-29. Hearing initiated with 2/3 vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss and decide whether or not to opt out of the accessory apartment provisions of Public Act 21-29. Further details on how to participate in this webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the Land Use Office. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Office Department via email at landuse@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated Madison, Connecticut, this 25th day of October, 2022. This was published once in the source on November 3rd, 2022, and once on November 10th, 2022. And just as a matter of housekeeping, I know we did run the legal for the Madison Dog Park, but as indicated at the last meeting, the applicant has granted an extension to hold that public hearing in December, at the December 15th meeting. And it may further be extended after some discussions with the advisory committee this past week. So we'll wait to receive any written notifications from the Beach and Rec Department. And Madam Chair, this afternoon, we did receive a request from Attorney Jeff Beatty regarding the text amendment public hearing scheduled for this evening, and requesting that due to the limited number of commissioners available this evening, he's requesting that we open and immediately continue the public hearing to the December 15th meeting to allow for additional commission members. And part of this is because the, as some of you are aware, and others not yet, the statutes do require a majority vote of all members of the commission, which would require 5 affirmative votes for a text amendment. And given that we only have 5 seated members this evening, the applicant is requesting to hold off until we have our full seated membership. So that would be, Giselle, motion to open the public hearing and then entertain a motion to immediately continue.
So can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'm looking for the, actually, which one of us?
It's application 22-27, Ron.
So
Oh,
moved.
okay, it's the first one. All right, so I move that application 22-27, that the hearing be opened, and I don't know if the same motion can be entertained to then immediately close the hearing until December 15th.
Continue, not close. Just open and continue.
Continue, okay.
Okay,
Maybe someone can second that.
I will second it.
Seconded. Sure.
Thank you.
Do it.
So, Giselle, we might as well vote on that then.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we put in a motion to, well, now it's continued, so we don't have to close, correct?
Correct. It's just going to remain open until the next meeting. And so we would just move on to our next item, which is the public hearing regarding opting out of Public Act 21-29. And I do have a presentation to share with the commission and the public regarding the statute. We'll just so during the public hearing process, I did receive questions from the public as far as public participation. There will be, not in the case of the last, because it was requested to be opened and immediately continued, but with all public hearings, there will be a presentation by the applicant. In this case, it's a public hearing that's initiated by the commission. So staff will do a brief presentation on the Public Act regarding accessory apartments, entertain any questions from the commission, and then our chair would open that up for public comment as well prior to closing the hearing and having deliberations.
Okay. So at this point, are we opening up the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I so move.
Okay. Do we need a second?
A second.
Thank you. Okay,
My PowerPoint up here.
We need to vote on it.
Pull this off. But to vote to open, yep, was. You had a
all in
second.
favor? All in favor to open the public hearing?
I'm,
Aye.
Aye. Hmm.
We can proceed.
Okay, can everybody see this? Accessory apartments?
I do.
All right. Let's see how I do. Just to give a background on Public Act 21-29, it's legislation that created a new set of statutory requirements for accessory apartments in Connecticut. The law became effective on January 1st, 2022. The law allows accessory apartments, both attached and detached, on a lot where a residential dwelling is permitted. Municipality can opt out of the statutory accessory apartment regulations before January 1st, 2023. The process to opt out, as I mentioned, the law became effective on January 1st, 2022. Madison has the option to, one, modify current regulations to meet all standards in the new law, two, opt out and maintain existing zoning regulations, or three, opt out of the law and modify our town zoning regulations for accessory apartments. This opting out process requires a public hearing and a 2/3 vote by the P&Z Commission and a subsequent vote by the Board of Selectmen before January 1st, 2023. This evening is the public hearing to consider opting out. So what is an accessory apartment under Public Act 2129? Accessory apartment, as defined in the Act, means a separate dwelling unit that A, is located on the same lot as a principal dwelling unit of greater square footage, B, has cooking facilities, and C, complies with or is otherwise exempt from any applicable building code, fire code, and health and safety regulations. What are the requirements of this new law? Designate locations or zoning districts where accessory apartments are allowed, provided at least one accessory apartment shall be allowed as of right on each lot that contains a single-family dwelling. No accessory apartment shall be required to be an affordable accessory apartment, meaning a deed-restricted affordable unit. We shall allow accessory apartments to be attached and or detached from the principal dwelling. We shall set a maximum net floor area of not less than 30% of the net floor area of the principal dwelling, or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. Larger sized apartments may be allowed. Setbacks, lot size, and building frontage shall be less than or equal to what is required for the principal dwelling. And lot coverage shall be greater than or equal to the principal dwelling. Height, landscaping, and architectural design standards cannot exceed what is required for a single-family dwelling. Are there additional requirements of the new law? Yes. Municipalities are prohibited from requiring a passageway between the apartment and the principal dwelling, exterior doors for the apartment unless required by building or fire code, more than one parking space or fee in lieu of parking, a familial, marital, or employment relationship between the occupants of the apartment and the principal dwelling. Cannot require a minimum age for occupants of the apartment, cannot require separate billing of utilities, or periodic renewals of permits for the apartment. There we go. Does Madison have accessory apartment regulations? Yes, we do. We adopted regulations in 1989, and the commission has not amended the regulations since that time. Our accessory apartment regulation section is number 24, and it allows attached and detached units. It requires that the owner must live on the premises. It reads that you cannot exceed 800 square feet or 1/3 of the floor area of the dwelling prior to the apartment, and the minimum size shall be 400 square feet. We require 3 parking spaces on the property and a maximum of 3 people occupying the apartment. Any alterations or additions shall be in harmony with the original character of the structures and the neighborhood and shall otherwise comply with all applicable zoning regulations. We limit to only 1 outside door. Interior alterations to create an accessory apartment within an existing structure can be permitted by the zoning enforcement officer. And exterior alterations shall be referred to ACA, our Advisory Committee on Community Appearance, and the Planning and Zoning Commission for a formal site plan review. And we require an annual affidavit stating that the owner is residing on the premises. We also have accessory building regulations under section 11 in our current code that indicates no accessory building shall be placed within a front yard. And maximum height requirements and setbacks vary depending on the accessory building location. For example, an accessory building shall not be built higher than a line drawn from a side or rear lot line at a slope of 1-to-1 nor closer than 6 feet to the side or rear property line. If any part of an accessory building is within 15 feet of the principal building on the lot, it shall be considered part of the principal building for the purpose of determining front, side, and rear yard requirements. How do Madison's regulations compare to Public Act number 2129? Madison's current zoning regulations are more restrictive and do not comply with the law for the following reasons. Accessory apartments are not permitted in all zones which allow for single-family use. While there's a provision for both attached and detached accessory apartments, the use of the word conversion in the regulations seems to indicate that a purpose-built construction accessory apartment might not be allowed. The regulations require a minimum of 400 square feet and a maximum of 800 square feet, or 1/3 of the floor area of the primary dwelling prior to the accessory apartment. The regulations also cap the number of occupants to three people. Accessory buildings are not permitted within the front yard, which puts greater limitations on location for detached accessory apartments. The regulations require building design of the accessory apartment or the addition accommodating the accessory apartment to be in harmony with the original character of the structures in the neighborhood. It also requires review by ACA, the Advisory Committee on Community Appearance. 3 off-street parking spaces are required for the accessory apartment, which if the current single-family dwelling only has 1 parking space, could be in conflict with the new law. And an annual renewal affidavit of owner occupancy is required. Options moving forward. 1, we can do nothing and wait until January 1st, 2023, when Madison's regulations would become null and void and the new law would govern. Or 2, we could modify our current regulations to meet all standards in the new law. Or 3, we could opt out and maintain our existing zoning regulations. Or 4, we could opt out and modify our zoning regulations. If Madison does not opt out, the Planning and Zoning Commission will need to review Section 24, accessory apartments, and Section 11, accessory structures of the zoning regulations, and modify them to meet the requirements of PA 2129. Madison chooses to opt out. 1, we need to discuss and identify any aspects of PA 2129, accessory apartment provisions, that appeal to the Commission. We need to review our existing regulations and determine what, if any, amendments should be made. We need to further discuss how the commission wishes to incorporate elements of the new law into regulations while maintaining local control over location of detached units behind the front yard, the height of detached units, which are lower, which we require to be lower than the principal dwelling, and the design of detached units. What are other municipalities doing? A lot of municipalities across the state are opting out. This is an example, mostly with the exception of Old Saybrook, of our Regional Council of Governments. And this information was gathered through the planners, through SCROG, to give municipalities an idea of which direction other towns were heading.
When it says East Haven is favoring opting out, does that mean they have not voted on it yet?
Right. So some of these are also in the process of opting out. So
Okay,
at the time of gathering this information, this was how it was provided back to the Regional Council of Governments.
okay.
So I would allow for questions and comments. And I also did prepare for you some more staff comments. Apologize, if I'm with two screens, there's a lot happening.
Were these staff comments provided to us, or you're just going to read them or show us to them tonight?
So what I did, Ron, I provided multiple or two other staff reports.
Right, I remember those, right.
Okay. So what I did for this evening was combine them into one document to put on the record for you and to go over. Here. A lot of what is in here is recapping what I provided in the slideshow presentation, because I thought it would be a little more helpful to have it broken out for you. Bottom line is, our zoning regulations do not comply with Public Act.
Right.
And so at this point, it's a policy decision. In talking to our attorney and hearing how, whether they've advised municipalities to opt out or what their other municipalities that they represent have done. I did speak with Pete Gelderman, our land use attorney from Birchman Moses. He indicated that they have not been actively advising their boards and commissions. Most of the municipalities have had the desire to act on their own. All of their clients have chosen to opt out. And in his words, for the simple reason that life is simpler that way. That it allows the commissions to retain that local control over the zoning regulations. It doesn't prohibit the municipalities from adopting all of the criteria that was established in the statute. It does, however, eliminate some of the concern that a lot of towns are having that what may come next in these legislative sessions and updates to the statutes. As we saw with the cannabis regulations that came through in the legislative sessions, indicating a cap on the number of units or the number of retail establishments that were permitted. And then shortly thereafter, in a subsequent section, they've eliminated that cap. Sometimes after municipalities created zoning regulations with the assumption that this was what the law was going to be. So there's no guarantee that any changes that come to the statutes down the road would provide for another opt-out opportunity. And so commissions and municipalities may be left with whatever is handed down from the state level. And so this has created some concern and some worry of, in my particular concern, it has to do with our accessory structures. The commission has excuse me, you've carefully crafted regulations over time to address the need for housing diversity, and also crafted regulations to maintain the streetscape and consistency of the residential zones. And so changing that to allow the accessory structures within the front yard, I think that could be a substantial change to your existing regulations that, while you may find is appropriate, it's something that is voided with the new regulation, and may take more time for the commission to consider. As you also know, you're in the process of updating your plan of conservation and development. That is a reflection of our community's goals. And in response to that plan and after adoption, it's recommended that the commission then go back and do a comprehensive review of your regulations to make sure that the tools and the mechanisms that you have available will help implement these goals. So it is staff's recommendation that the commission do opt out of these provisions. And I think that's to allow the commission time to understand how our community's needs have changed as we go through this POCD, and then be able to take the time, digest that, and craft regulations that reflect our residents' needs. And if you find that those needs are mirroring those of the state, then there's no harm in adopting those regulations at that time.
Right. Mhm.
Any questions for the commission?
I have a question.
Yes.
So of the municipalities that have opted out, have they all opted out to maintain status quo with what the current regulations require, or are they in fact considering modifications of some nature? Do you know?
Good question. Some do not have access. There are some municipalities that don't allow for accessory apartments at all. And in many ways, Madison has allowed this for quite some time, also as of right. So that is consistent with the statute. A zoning permit and a site plan approval through the Planning and Zoning Commission is considered as of right approval. So we're ahead of our time in some manner. Which there are some municipalities that just don't have accessory apartments and don't want them. A lot of municipalities, because part of this opting out process is to state reasons on the record for opting out. And as I read through a lot of them, they are modifying. Some are choosing to adopt many of the provisions in the
But not all. But not all.
But some are maintaining limitations on size or accessory height, setbacks, things of that nature.
I see. All right. So is the mission for us going forward for the public hearing to recommend what we believe by vote, what each conflict resolution should be, and then present to the open public hearing? Is that what the idea is to do going forward?
So what I presented was what the statute is and what our existing regulations are.
Right. Correct.
Which differences stand. I've given you some reasons as to why there would be a recommendation to opt out.
Right.
I think it's a good opportunity, if you don't have any other questions about that material, to allow for public comment, and then have discussion amongst you to see if you're in general.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. I thought perhaps as a justification for opting out, we would present what our recommendation is for each situation where there's a conflict.
So we do. I have prepared a document that, and if you'd like me to read through that now to you, I can give you the reasons that staff would suggest putting in a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to draft a formal motion so that something is written for you. I will screen share that so we
Well,
can read.
hold on. Let's have the commission members talk a minute, okay, before the staff continues their recommendation. Does anyone else have any comments about this before? I mean, one view is that the town of Madison in 33 years may not have spent 10 minutes thinking about this. We adopted in 1989. It's been our regulation for 33 years. And I don't know if there's been any change of it between now and then. There's been 3 opportunities on this 10-year plan to consider it. So we really have what may be an out-of-date set of regulations because we just haven't thought about it. And this law was passed last January 1st, and we're just thinking about it in the 11th month of our opportunity. On the other side, I have to assume the legislature had lots of hearings, lots of commentary and evidence. They had people draft a new set of regulations, 33 years more modern than ours. They debated it, they voted on it, and it's probably a product of a year or 2 of their efforts, where frankly, we've done nothing probably in 33 years to think about it. So and when we think about, well, the state, we shouldn't have them force on us their view. On the other hand, we only exist because the state gave us the right to exist through enabling legislation. They passed this and they've given us every opportunity to opt out. And again, we're sort of doing this at the 11th month, and I don't think any of us have a real good hold on it. As I looked at the provisions, frankly, the comparison between ours and theirs, nothing jumped out at me as terribly offensive, though our planning director said the provision of having accessory apartments in front might be offensive to Madison residents. So frankly, I just have sort of an assumption that this updated one, Guilford adopted it. Guilford is not an unsophisticated town. This list may or may not be well dated. Who knows? Maybe 10 other towns. There's how many towns in the state? Maybe Janet knows that. 53, 97. I don't know.
There are 169 municipalities.
Right. So we have a list given to us of 10 to 2, but there's 169 that are going to have to deal with this. Maybe they all waited to the last minute to deal with it. But frankly, it looks like a pretty well thought out, and I would not be a bit offended to opt into it. Or we can just spend the next month and year going through every single provision, and we'll end up with something a little different than the state. And maybe we'll feel good about it because it's local control. But remember, they passed this and said, you can opt out. So it's not like they're forcing it down our throat. They're giving us an opportunity to think about it. I'm just concerned we haven't thought very much about it up to this point. And nothing about the difference in provisions offended me, but everybody can place their, make their statements.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Madam Chair. So I went through this in another town recently within the last few years, and just wanted to say that I'm in favor of opting out for the reason that you're saying, Ron, is it hasn't been thought about in Madison for many years. And what we saw in my last residence was that, and I lived in a village similar to Madison, where I live now, is that specifically parking spaces, the restriction on parking spaces in accessory apartments and on the owners living in part of that building where the accessory apartment was going became very restrictive. And so we were limiting people who needed spaces like that to work in, our workers in town who wanted to live in town, use public transportation, or walk to their place of work. So I believe that hearing what Aaron said about the restriction of an accessory being put in front of a building, our biggest concern we found was the parking and the need for the owner to actually live on site.
Mhm.
So I
Interesting.
feel, Madam Chair, that we should opt out so we can reconsider specifically for Madison. And like you said, it may be, that we agree with the state, or we may do something more specific to our own town.
Right, I agree. I'm even leaning towards Erin, it's okay for me to say my comment? Or,
Yes, and then Robert has his hand up also, Giselle.
because I can't see everyone, so I apologize for
Yeah,
that.
I realize that. So I'll guide you with hands up so you know.
Okay. And I'll be very brief. I do feel that moving towards the opting out and maybe even looking at modifying what we currently have
Right.
would be a possibility, a way to go. So that's basically it. The one thing that stuck out to me was the one exterior door. So much has changed with structures and design. It'd be great to look at modifying what we currently have. So I'm not sure who else had their hand up.
Bob did.
Yeah, Madam Chair, first of all, I really appreciate the comments of everyone. We have a lot of knowledge on this board, no doubt about it. My question is, I have a lot of questions. One is, how many accessory apartments do we have in Madison? And number two is, Guilford decided not to opt out, and I'm assuming it was a decision to not opt out. They didn't just ignore this. What was the reasoning on our neighboring town, their organization, not to opt out?
I would have to defer that. I wouldn't know why they're choosing to go that route. I don't know if it's definitive, Erin, but it seems like that's the way they're thinking. And I think we discussed, did we have a number for accessory apartments?
I do. So I can tell you based off of, because we do require an annual renewal of accessory apartments. Since 1989, we have created over 100 accessory apartments that fall under Section 24 of the zoning regulations. And Ron, by no means were my comments of our existing regulations meant to say that staff did not recommend a revisit and review of our zoning code. In fact, I am going to be your biggest advocate to push for a comprehensive review of our regulations, because as you said, 1989 was a while ago. And in 1989, as you see some of the parallels between the Public Act language and our existing regulations, it was fairly progressive for the Planning and Zoning Commission, in my opinion, to allow for detached and accessory structures and as of right. I can give you some small background, having worked for the town of Guilford previously, prior to my arrival here in Madison. Accessory apartments are special permit use under the zoning regulations when I was zoning officer there. And detached accessory structures with a footprint over 750 square feet was also a special exception use. So when we had accessory apartments coming forward, whether it was attached or detached, it was a special exception use that was not created or not considered an as of right permit process like Madison has currently. When I was with the town, with the town planner and an outside consultant, we underwent a comprehensive zoning regulation review that lasted over a year and a half. and was still under process, under review as I left. Some of the draft language that we created did some of the restrictions on the accessory apartment regulations. However, they were not as permissive as the Public Act. Since my departure, there has been a replacement of the town planner in Guilford as well, who very well may have other recommendations for the commission. So I can't speak to the reasons why Guilford opted in to the provisions, but I can say that in doing so, they would have had to consider the whole accessory structure aspect of that, just as our commission needs to do. And yes, you know, we are in November here. Your vote would be a recommendation to our legislative body, who ultimately makes the decision whether or not to opt out of the provisions. And so, yes, there is a sense of time as of the essence, but again, there's no requirement or there's no restriction on the commission saying that you'd like to incorporate the provisions of the act. I sat in on the public hearing process during this legislative session, as I was doing so as an executive committee member of the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officials at the time, and perhaps drew the short straw, because by the time my number was called for testimony on this legislative, it was 2 a.m. and I had fallen asleep.
Yeah, I told you they were working hard on it.
You know, there was a lot, you know, this Public Act had significant changes to the zoning statutes and title section 8-2. So it was not just accessory apartments. There were other provisions in that. As some of you may recall, a lot of that was led by Desegregate Connecticut, who initiated that bill. There were various parties who were involved, and ultimately the bill that was approved was a very watered down version of the initially submitted proposal. And I don't know, and we just, land use attorneys, the Bar Association, when they speak to our organizations about the bill and this opting out provision, this is something we've never seen before. Whether it was a compromise, whether it was, you know, deliberately added or it was left in, I can't speak to that. But a lot of municipalities, I do think the majority of municipalities, from the various planning events and land use seminars that I've attended, and land use attorneys throughout the state are actively recommending opting out. Our land use attorney is not making a recommendation, more simply saying, yes, life is easier without this, and was content to have their municipalities opt out. So no real, how are bills crafted? Are they well thought out and, vetted? Yes, I think they're vetted. There were a lot of people signed up to testify. Some made it, some didn't. But it's unusual, and a lot of changes. And I don't anticipate that this is going to be the last time we're seeing housing and housing diversity come before the legislature. I would expect it again next session. So I don't think this is over at this point. And none of us really know what will be proposed or passed. So that's.
Yeah. Right. So
Thank you.
It's
complicated.
It is. It's not simple. And when these changes come down, yes, we do receive our enabling statutes are just that, enabling statutes from the state. However, Connecticut is a home rule state. So we have 169 different ways of doing the same thing.
Right. Any more comments?
None for me.
So is this when we move to hear from the public?
Sure. And excuse me, we just ask if anybody, we have 5 attendees in the public, if anyone would like to speak about accessory apartments and the Public Act and opting out, just please raise your hand and we'll call on you and allow you to speak.
So are we waiting for the hands to be raised?
And no one has raised their hands at this time, Madam Chair. I guess, are there any other questions? Would the commission, would you like me to screen share my memo so at least I can show you? It's a lot of the same text that I cut and put into slides for you, but I'm happy to walk you through that so you have it, as well as staff recommendations and potential reasons
Good idea.
to opt out. As you know, you do have to you do have to state reasons on the record if
Okay.
you were going to do that. So this is, excuse me, memorandum, and a lot of this our commission has seen earlier from October when we discussed the scheduling of a hearing. As we indicated, Public Act 2129 substantially modified the Connecticut General Statute 8-2, which pertain to zoning. Highlighting here the definition of accessory apartment, as I shared in our presentation. In addition, these are the provisions effective January 1st, 2022, numbers 1 through 8 of what is a municipality shall allow for an accessory apartment. And following here, numbers 1 through 5 is the process for the opting out. 2/3 vote initiating the opt-out process, what the commission has done earlier in October, holding a public hearing, which is currently being held this evening. The commission would need to decide to opt out within the ordinary statutory deadlines for considering an application, which is 65 days after the close of a public hearing. You need to state on the record the reasons for your decision. 2/3 of a vote of those participating is required. Notice of decision needs to be published just as any other action in the newspaper. And the opting out process needs to be ratified by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Selectmen if town meeting is the legislative body. We went through the process. If you fail to change our current regulations or opt out, the statute will prevail as of January 1st, 2023. This is a copy of the slides here currently in the sections in which our current regulations do not comply with the Public Act. To reiterate our options here on page 3, doing nothing and the new regulations become effective. Modifying our regulations to meet the new law. We can opt out and maintain our current regulations for the time being or for an extended time. And you can opt out and modify your regulations. As I summarized in our discussion, it's staff's recommendation to the commission to opt out of the provisions of subsections A to D of the Public Act 2129. The commission has exercised discretion in the drafting of your existing zoning regulations regarding accessory apartments and detached accessory structures. The regulations are carefully crafted to address the need for flexible housing options in our community while maintaining consistency with surrounding residential streetscapes. Opting out of the statutory changes retains local control over the regulations while eliminating concern over what legislative updates may come in the future. It's appropriate that the commission revisits your zoning regulations from time to time to review and modify various sections. As we're in the process of updating our plan of conservation and development, I expect that some of our goals from our community may change 10 years ago. After adoption of the updated plan, staff recommends that the commission begin a comprehensive review of the zoning regulations to ensure that these goals can best be implemented through the zoning mechanisms available. And I have provided you with a draft resolution that encompasses the requirements of the statute, including the effective date, the process of opting out, the dates of the public hearing notice, and the date of the public hearing, and the reasons for opting out, which I can share for you. And then ultimately, if a member of the commission is in agreement, that can be converted into a motion. The reasons: the town is in the process of updating the plan of conservation and development, which will guide future updates to the zoning regulations. The commission established accessory apartment regulations in 1989, which have successfully enabled the creation of over 100 units. The regulations contain some of the provisions included in Public Act 2129. However, additional restrictions exist that are not consistent with the act, including, we go through A through G, identifying our differences. A is the maximum size of accessory apartment being less than what is allowed by Public Act 2129. The required front yard setback for detached accessory apartments being greater than what is allowed under Public Act 2129. C, the maximum height of detached accessory apartments being less than what is allowed by Public Act number 2129. D, that an architectural design standard exists for exterior changes associated with the creation of an accessory apartment, which is greater than what is allowed by Public Act 2129. E, that periodic renewals be required for accessory apartments, which differs from what is allowed in the Act. And F, accessory apartments are not allowed in all zones that allow single-family dwellings, which is more restrictive than Public Act 2129. And 3 off-street parking spaces are required for accessory apartments, which, if the current single-family dwelling only has 1 space, would be greater than what is allowed under Public Act 2129. Further voted that the notice of the action be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen with recommendation to complete the process. And I've provided the effective date, which would be after a action notice runs in the circulating newspaper. Did any commissioners have any questions about the staff notes, which I think we've already kind of went through them multiple times, or the reasons that could be stated on the record for opting out?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we vote to opt out and forward to the Board of Selectmen and recommend to them that they move forward with opting out so that we can then develop our own plan going forward.
Okay. Do I have,
Janet, just to clarify that are you recommending the draft resolution that staff has drafted for you, indicating the reasons as such, because that it is required on the record for the.
So we have to have reasons as well as the Board of Selectmen having reasons?
Yes, you need to state your findings on the record, which is why I
Do we have to have X number of reasons? Because I can state that.
I think she's asking you whether you want to adopt what the staff report is, perhaps.
the draft resolution that staff provided.
Right.
That-
Right.
we can use that as the reasons.
I'm fine with that.
Oh, okay. I was just clarifying
Sure.
how you were moving forward.
Yep. So
Go ahead.
if Janet, if you're in agreement that we'll use the staff resolutions, we can go ahead and ask for a second.
I'll be the
I am.
second.
Can we go back to the, can we remove the screen share so we can see each other? It'll be easier, thank you.
Although we can't see you, Ron. I can only see.
Oh,
your
I guess I hit it when I was trying to get to
background.
see all of us together.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we had a second, so that's discussion time, correct, Madam Chair?
Correct.
My personal view for right now is that I'm not ready to vote on this. I'm going to abstain. I just do not. I need to look more carefully at these documents and think about it and hear some more thoughts on it and learn more about it. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Any other comments?
And again, I'm going to vote against it because I think we should opt in. I think it's a more considered approach. I don't think we just, as Robert O'Connor said, we just haven't given enough thought to why ours is better. And so anyway, I will be voting against opting out.
Did we get everyone? I don't know if there's anyone else.
Madam Chair, if I could, and my apologies, I think in our confusion after public comment, we didn't close the public hearing.
Okay.
So if we could backtrack and entertain a motion to close the public comment period and then entertain a motion again. My apologies.
Motion to end public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
And then we need a motion to entertain public comment. I mean, commission comment.
A
We
motion.
need to vote on closing the public
Janet
hearing.
can go back with her motion.
I think the motion on the table is to close the public hearing. We need to vote on it. We have a second, I thought.
Oh, all in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
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 Good.
Now you can entertain a motion,
Comment.
a motion regarding the opting out.
Madam Chair, I move that we vote to opt out and adopt the staff recommendation and forward that to the Board of Selectmen and recommend that they opt out so that we can further discuss our own regulations and tweak those. And if we indeed decide to adopt what the state has regulated, then that's fine. But we have a little more time to decide that if we opt out now.
Okay, so do I ask for a second at this point or? Because she's putting in a motion, so.
That's correct.
So
I
do
will I will second that.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
I'm in
Aye.
favor. Well,
Okay. And that's 3-2 and the motion carries. To affirmatively opt out.
3-2. Wait
Yeah.
a second. I
Yeah.
didn't vote against. I voted to abstain.
Oh,
I'm
excuse
not
I
abstaining.
apologize, Robert. You're absolutely correct. You abstained. So it's 3-1-0.
But planning director then, did it take a 2/3 vote or not? Or is that just to open the hearing?
Vote of who's voting. Not like the text amendment.
We know, but an abstain is a no vote. So anyway, I'm not, does it require a 2/3 vote of the planning commission to opt out?
Not the entire commission, just of those, not like a regulation. It's just the majority of who's voting.
All right, so it's not a 2/3 vote, it's a majority vote tonight.
Full commission, correct. So 3 would carry.
Okay. I
Yes,
misunderstood.
I did go through that with Peter prior
Okay.
to. So yes, that's
Because
correct.
it's not a 2/3 vote tonight, it's a
Right,
3/5 vote tonight.
okay.
So moving on to our next, I will bring our panelists over. And the next item, Madam Chair, is 908-910 Boston Post Road, which is the general's residences at Fence Creek. This is a site plan modification that's being requested by the applicant. And I will pull up some documents. We have Adam Greenberg, the developer, here on behalf of the application. We also have Amy Macy, who is the president of the Homeowners Association, present to present the modifications.
Okay. So,
And I can screen share here.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you all for having us. And I'll just say I've been listening since the beginning, so thank you for giving your time. And I know a lot of you are new, and I'll just start by saying, unfortunately, our attorney and my partner is not going to be on this call. So Giselle, like your acting chair, I'll be acting attorney or whatever you want to call it. So bear with me as we go through this all together. But thank you for your time.
And Madam Chair, this is not a public hearing process. This is a site plan modification. And I'm hoping that the commission has had an opportunity to read through the application. Page 6 of their application that was drafted from the Homeowners Association, specifically by Amy. It goes through the, it includes 6 items that are requested for modification. And actually, it's been reduced down to 5 requests. And I tried to summarize those in a brief staff report for you. That might be a little easier to go through. So, Adam, how would you like to do this? Do you want us to kind of identify what all of the recommended changes were, and then we can show you on the plans and some photos so that the commission is familiar with what specifically is changing?
Yeah, I think we should, yeah, exactly. Just go through each one at a time, show the photos, and then any questions that the commission has for us, we're here to kind of answer and kind of walk through each one at a time instead of overwhelming with, okay, these are the 5 things. So that would be great.
We'll get started on that in the effort. So this is just, I tried to summarize here the applicants before you this evening seeking site plan modification. It's a 9-unit cluster housing development that was approved in 2019 and further modified in 2020. To summarize the requested changes, the first are patio extensions and stone sitting walls for many of the units. 7 of these units existing have been sold to private homeowners, and the Homeowners Association has taken control of the property, essentially. The developer still owns 2 of the units in the actual reproduction general's residence while it remains under construction. The Homeowners Association had contracted a landscaping company to expand the patios, and install stone sitting walls at many of the homes. While approved by the homeowners association, this modification has not been approved by the commission, and thus requiring this return to you for approval. The applicant has provided photos of the patios and the walls for your reference. Some of the walls have minor variations in material color and the capping. So we'll point that out in the photos. And the applicant has each property owner has worked with the landscape designer, which is John Cunningham's firm, Tech Landscaping, to establish plantings around each unit. All of these reviews went before ACA, our advisory committee on community appearance, earlier this week, and had extensive review and ultimately received recommended approval. So that's the first item to share with you, and I will provide you with some photos here of what these stone walls look like and the patio expansions. Excuse me. Here's an example of the stone wall, of the stone patios, rather than just a small rectangle. They have been expanded, most of them to the length of the wall, the adjacent building wall. And you can see that's similar for the other units here. And here's an example of some of the sitting walls. It's created a little bit of a sense of privacy for each of the individual owners. As you can see, most of them are all of them are less than 30 inches in height. A lot of them incorporate some type of grill or outdoor cooking amenity as well. So this one has more of a solid, larger stone cap. They're all relatively similar in colors. And here's another example here, and those are individual stones as the cap. As you can see, there's landscape beds. When these photos were taken, not all of the landscaping has been installed yet, as they're currently under construction and trying to install all of the improvements prior to the change in weather. So that's the first request before you. Excuse me. The second request.
Should we discuss these each at a time or come back to them?
You can do them. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the stone walls or the patio?
My only question is, do the association rules limit the height of these walls? Can they be 6 foot high? What are have we been given the association restrictions or declaration or anything to know?
That's a really good question. There is nothing that restricts the height, but when we met with ACA, earlier this week, ACA did suggest that for the purposes of conformity and kind of keeping a homogeneous appearance on the property, that we consider putting something in our bylaws that would state that other homeowners who want to install stone wall, put something up around the patio should, put something up that is consistent in keeping with these stone walls.
Because as you drive down, you can see these from the road, and they're not very tall,
right,
to give you privacy.
Right.
They look nice, and my thought, if the association wants them and ACMA thinks they're okay, but I wouldn't want to see 6 foot walls there.
Right.
And so I think the planning commission, since the association hasn't restricted them, I think if we're going to give approval, we need to put a limit on it ourselves. You might want to come back to us next year and say 32 inches is too short. Can we go to 39 inches? I don't know, but apparently you all haven't put a restriction. I think it would look terrible if we had 8-foot walls there.
Right.
So
I-
that's
Yeah,
my
no, I agree. And actually, the original plans did call for a very tall, a 6-foot fence around part of my patio.
Mhm.
And I should say, I am the person, I just want to, in full transparency, I'm the person that had the ugly, horrendous white picket fence up. And I apologize. There's a long story there, but we took it down at our own expense. And I am now actually before you. Part of what we are going to be asking today is because I took my fence down, I now don't have a fence, and I have this Cocker Spaniel that leaps over fences that I need to, create some kind of enclosure there, which is why originally that fence was put up. But I'm now here today to ask you also if you would approve my putting up a stone wall. We did not come before you earlier because we are a brand new, the HOA just came into existence a few months ago. And so the stone walls were handled individually, actually not by the HOA, but individually. The HOA has since approved all of them and has looked at the proposal for mine and has approved that. Mine would be a little bit higher, nothing near 6 feet. It would be a total of 4 feet. So the stone wall would be the exact same height as these others. They're all roughly 30 inches in height. But then mine would have a very small little picket on top to contain, because my dog can go over easily the 30-foot fence. He's already leapt over the stone wall on East Wharf and went bounding into my neighbor's yard.
And just to expound on that, Ron, part of your concern and Amy has been working with John Cunningham very specifically on the landscaping around that. So from the road even, it would be shielded with a lot of those plantings. So, and Erin has the pictures that she'll be able to show you of
Okay.
what Amy's proposing.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get a sense of that.
Yeah.
It's already shielded. You wouldn't be able to see it. That's what we're looking at, doing something like that. So it would be a stone wall of the 30 inches high, similar to very much like what the others are. The same mason would do the work. And then just putting this small picket on top. And as Adam said, John Cunningham has worked with me to come up with the design for it.
And ACCA further discussed the cedar fence on the top, recommended an untreated white cedar fence.
Right.
And a little less of a decorative cap, a little less colonial and more consistent with the development, a flatter style cap, or perhaps, not such a high post, but a little bit more level.
Yeah.
And have that as a total of 18 inches. So as it's proposed on Amy's property, which is one of the units fronting on East Wharf Road, so it's visible, it's the unit closest to the intersection of East Wharf and Boston Post Road. And that area, I do have a plan here, and not to scroll in front, too much to give you a headache, but this is the back of Amy's house, and I did show you a photo of that with the red cedar shingles. Her roof is. This is the existing patio space here, and they're proposing a bit of river rock, 2 feet, and then the 30-inch stone wall with a gate opening, a cedar gate opening to be able to move lawn furniture, etc. And then the 18-inch picket on top. So the total height of that stone wall and fence would be 4 feet total.
Yeah.
And this is the side that's visible from the post road, and this is an area, and there are some photographs, and it is rather extensively planted at this point at the recommendation of the landscape designer.
Yeah, John Cunningham worked to put plantings right on that corner there that Erin was just pointing out. So you really would not be that's the only corner of the patio that you could see from the road, because my patio is for the most part hidden by the general's residence house. and then by my house from East Wharf, because this is in the back. So we did put quite a bit of tall and full plantings on that corner. So if you drive by, you'll see, you really can't see my patio without any wall. You can't see it at all.
Erin,
Oh, go ahead.
do we have any information regarding what Ron was referring to in terms of fence height? Is there?
So this is the only unit that is requesting a fence. And this particular fence is going to be 18 inches high on top of the 30-inch wall. So the walls that have been constructed, I think there are only 2 units that don't have walls currently around their patios. And I'll stop screen sharing so we can talk. So any future walls, Ron's concern was that they didn't, or modifications to these walls was that they didn't exceed the 30 inches and become, these barriers on the property. And keep in mind that this is a modification to the site plan that you approved. Although these are individual units, this is one property that's a special exception use and an approved site plan. So modifications, regardless of whether or not they're approved by the homeowners association, are still subject to local land use approval as well. And I know some of this was unknown to the homeowners when they moved onto the property. And Amy has been very agreeable to meet with staff and Adam as well to try to educate the board of the homeowners association moving forward so that they know the proper permit process so that we're not coming with after the fact requests.
Yeah.
And
we just had a board meeting last night and went over this again, but it's going to be a continual process as we have new people, joining the community, just educating them about the types of approvals that are needed. So a very heartfelt apology for, anything that did go up without those approvals.
And I can show you a brief photo of that corner that Amy was referring to on her property here. This is the side that's visible from East Wharf, and this is the screening here. So the building itself of the Generals will block a portion of, it comes out in front of this. So they are trying to create some evergreen screening there so that the stone wall on this side and the cedar fence, which will ultimately gray like these shingles on the house, are not so visible. So that's the second request. Does anyone have any other questions about this?
Actually, Ron, I was just going to say, speaking to your concern about some big, heavy-looking tall wall, that's one of the reasons that John Cunningham and I decided to put that little picket on top, so it doesn't feel like such a mass, to contain. It's a way of containing the dog without having to have that type of heavy. We also thought that a large, high stone wall would not be very appealing.
Just for clarification, we're being asked to approve all the walls that have gone in, not just Amy's that potentially is going in.
Right.
And we could frame it as no stone wall higher than 3 feet and no extended fence on top of it greater than 18 inches, something like that.
Yeah.
Because again, the Homes Association has nothing at the moment.
Right.
And if we just say, do whatever you want and come back to us each time, it's going to drive us crazy.
Ron, you can further that where you can approve the existing walls and the proposed wall at the Macy House, and any future changes to those walls require a return to the commission for ACO review and your approval. You don't need to give carte blanche that everyone can add a fence on top of their wall.
Well, but there's 2 unsold units. So why couldn't they go on and put a 30-foot wall in without coming back to us? It seems like we're really doing spot zoning for each individual unit in this
Mhm.
development. Why not either approve any of them having 30-inch high walls with a 18-inch extended fence, rather than, and maybe the homes association, because apparently this has been approved. ACMA has thought this is fine, right? The
ACMA
homes
did not-
association has thought it was fine.
Yeah, ACCA reviewed a fence on this particular house, this particular unit. There was
Yeah.
no proposal to allow fencing on other walls, so they did not
Oh,
consider.
no.
Adam, can you speak to the general's residence, those two units? Are you proposing sitting walls around those patios?
So we have those two under contract, and we're hoping to close them in December. As of right this moment, I do not believe there is a sitting wall. But I think we were waiting for this whole process to kind of go to fruition. So the homeowners have not chosen to put those up yet. So I'll say that. But to your point also, if there was a standardized, you could go to a 30-inch wall, then it would make it much easier for them to
Yeah.
not have to come back to you guys
Yeah.
after the fact. So
Yeah, and then maybe have to come
Okay.
back for a fence if they want something else on top of the wall.
Right,
and the
right.
way that, and once again, the way that they're all positioned in the rear and making sure that, the landscaping is giving their own protection from, a little privacy protection anyway. So it's kind of in line with that whole theme. So I was going to even suggest that. So I think it's great. And I know the homeowners association would be happy, because guidelines for one for all kind of is a better way to go about it versus, well, Amy has it. Well, I want it. And I just got a dog. So
Right.
I think it's great.
I actually would support that too. I think it would be helpful for us.
And you would incorporate it in your homes association by some kind of amendment that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would say 30 inches no greater than, and if you
Without
want
special
more, you
approval.
have to go to the planning commission.
Right, right.
Right.
I think it should be both places, Ron. I think you can include it as a condition of your site plan modification, and it can be reflected in the homeowner's bylaws. You can condition, as you review the rest of these modifications, my recommendation for a commission was to make sure you're including all of the previous conditions, from the commission, so that we're not losing any of those. But another could be that you allow 30-inch stone sitting walls surrounding each unit's patio. And that way, if those new residents come forward and wish to enclose their patios with a sitting wall, it's already covered, and they know that it has to be a stone
Right.
sitting wall.
And
The fencing,
excuse me, is the size of the patio controlled by the homes association or by us?
that's a request to you now. So those were modifications.
Okay.
The initial patios were only about half the length of the wall of the house. And as the homeowners got in, they all agreed, and they ended up extending the whole width of the wall. So that was done. It's all completed, but it needs to be approved formally by you. That's by the commission. That is one of the requests.
And I'll just say, just once again, for the record, they were 10 by 16 originally. And then that was the approved plan. The homeowners individually contracted outside of us as the developers. Basically not understanding the rules and the regulations of coming from their own house, coming into an association. Well, this is my area, so I can do not as I please, but so that was part of the learning process. Just so once again, we acknowledge where our faults were. Homeowners individually have acknowledged where maybe some faults were, and we're here kind of to make that all better. But they realized personally, they were like, well, to put this table and back up our chairs, and it was just too small for them. So that's just once again, just getting it all out there so everyone's kind of on the same page.
You know, I'm just thinking, there is one stone wall, Adam. I think Marcia's might be taller than 30 inches. Marcia Geringer's. Hers does not enclose the whole patio. Hers is the one right next to mine. She kind of has like just side walls.
Yeah, Aaron,
But-
I just sent you a photo, I think.
I'm worrying that I'm thinking hers is actually.
It's on this side, correct?
There it is. Yep. Yep. So part of it, I think, is higher than the 30 inches.
Column,
Anybody know how high?
other side as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of caps off the ends and leaves the back open.
Would it be possible to say that moving forward, they need to be no more than 30 inches, and anything above needs to be approved by by the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Do you know her height or not? Is it 36, 39?
I
Well,
don't know.
Yeah, and I can show you this example as well, Ron, and one here. You see there's a
30
city, some of them.
Ron, I just got a message. It's 36 inches
Okay,
at the peak.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let's make it 36
Wanna go
inches.
36 inches as a establishing a standard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's fine as well. I agree. Um,
Since
Okay.
it's
Go ahead. Who did I interrupt accidentally? Was that Adam?
I was just saying, since it's already there, I'm good with going 36 inches.
Okay.
I am too.
The next request is not really visible from the road. It was not really an issue with ACA either. The two units in the rear, they face the marsh area, numbers 4 and 5. Fencing is proposed between each unit, and the goal of that fencing is to screen any exterior utilities, AC condensers, generators, and also any garbage receptacles that may be kept outside of the garage. And their request, because of the positioning of the houses, they need to stagger their cedar fencing. And so that's a modification of the approval technically. It's not visible from the road and wouldn't be noticed. ACA didn't have any issues with that and kind of breezed right over that particular request. But I did want to note that there's a slight modification in the location of the fencing. And Adam, maybe you can kind of speak to that. Is that the staggering is where down the length of the wall of the house that fencing is going to be placed?
Yeah, exactly. And you can pull the picture, but it's right in between the houses. To your point, it's really just you're going to see a fence if you see anything from the road instead of the mechanicals and the trash cans. So much more aesthetically pleasing to see a staggered fence than those. But it's really, as Aaron said, it's kind of one of those irrelevance. It was going there anyway. It's just a little bit positioned based on the way that the houses ended up being positioned. So
Is there a height requirement on that fence?
I think
I
they're all
believe-
6 foot max.
6 feet.
Standard panel of the white cedar fence, solid cedar fence. So I'm going to share the screen for this next request so that you can see the comparison. And these are the East Wharf duets as Duo designed. This top image is how the units were designed, and as the properties were sold and some challenges arose and some modifications came up, this bottom version is how the units have been constructed thus far. So this particular item did have the most discussion with ACA this week, and we can kind of summarize this. As you can see, so there's a dark window, so the metal frame of the window is darker, and the proposed trim color on this, it's a red cedar shingle. The proposed trim was a hunter green coloring. And as they're moving forward, there are some challenges, and I think more of a maintenance standpoint with a darker color on the AZEK trim. And my understanding is that from our ACA, I may butcher this, but from the ACA meeting, the darker color paint added some issues with heat that could cause some separation, requiring more extensive caulking and maintenance down the road, which would be an added expense for the homeowners association. They also had challenges in matching the color, is my understanding. So the homeowner, as they're currently not finished, are they just primed, Amy?
Yeah, they're actually, there's nothing on them yet. So it's just the AZAC is white. And so when we learned that we couldn't do the hunter green, that beautiful dark green, we did try. There's some samples up that we put up on that the builder put up on the windows between the houses, trying to get some other options. They all really look awful. And so this is my house and this is Marcia Geringer's house. And so basically we just looked at the white, and it's a pretty very classic sort of New England shingle style look. It's all over Connecticut and Massachusetts shoreline to have the shingles, which will weather, with the white trim. So what we're asking is, because we can't do the green, we'd like to just keep it white, and we can do a softer white. It doesn't have to be the stark white, but we would like to just do the trim in the white.
And I think ACA agreed in the desire to keep that, the red cedar and the darker shading. However, they did understand that there were maintenance issues, and really ended up agreeing with the homeowners and not challenging that, more for the fact that this is going to be their responsibility to maintain the exterior of the home over time. So they did give a favorable recommendation for that white trim. You'll notice if you're playing I Spy here on the photos that there's another change, and that would be within the carport section of Unit 6. So the original design created this sort of waved arch with connecting the fencing and the carport area. Since the homeowner ownership, the siding was finished. As it was under contract, and the siding was continued to be the white, the red cedar shape instead of the vertical siding to match the fencing line. And this is a carport, so this it is set back. This is not on the same plane of the house, and there's a vehicle
I see.
in here as well. And I can show you in the photos kind of how that sets back. And the request, and after the fact request is to be able to not have to remove that siding and replace it with the vertical siding. These fencing is, even the door of the garage is set back at least a foot from the front plane of the house, and the carport even further. So this fence line is set back along the wall of the building as well. And ACA did, admit that they did spend a lot of time considering the design of these on East Wharf, and that these homes would just kind of blend in and down as you're driving on East Wharf and have that different feel to them. But they ultimately did agree that it wasn't that significant of a change to the facade, and granted or recommended a favorable recommendation. So this is the elevation drawing, and I can show you also if you can see. So the units in the back here, where you can see the dark trim. So there with our scrolling. But this is the rear view, so you can see some of the white unpainted trim currently. And I have some front elevation drawings of these two windows as well here. So you can see a little difference here. So the garage is set back a good foot, and this is the area where the vehicle would drive in that has the red cedar backing on that.
And to Aaron's point, also, the garage itself is set back a little bit, but where the fence line is, it's way behind. It's past the garage. Yeah, that's a
Stay
better
in
way to
that
show it.
picture, Aaron. Do you see the white, so do you see that? Yeah, that white door there. So the fence is actually behind that white door. Yep. So the fence will go back there, because see, those are the two garbage pails back there. And the fence will run across to hide the mechanicals and the garbage pails. But it's, as Aaron said, it's not on the same plane as.
So this is a better picture here. This is the
Yeah.
wall
Right.
that was initially, it was supposed to have that vertical siding like you can see in the dormer here. So it's still present here on the portion of the house. However, this was not sided in that fashion.
And they were intended with an option, intended for a carport with an option of a garage. So once the other garage came in and the other one was a carport, it kind of threw the whole dynamic of that continuous flow of this is how kind of Duo was intending it to look. So once again, just kind of showing and explaining how it got to this point when Marcia chose that carport. That's kind of where we're at.
So my question, Aaron, is the planning commission years ago told them what color to paint the soffits, and they're coming to us to change it. I'm stunned that we were that detailed.
There were requirements that the finishes of the buildings go to ACA for review.
Oh, all right. So it was an ACA recommendation, not ours, and they're going to ACA, and ACA's agreed.
It was a condition of approval that
Right.
the design, yes, the designs were reviewed.
But I was on the planning commission. I don't remember voting what color the soffits were, and if they want to change them, it's fine with me. I think these changes are fine, but I'm just sort of surprised we have to tell people what color to paint their soffits, but maybe that's their job.
Typically, it's something that's proposed by the applicant. They work it out with ACA ahead of action by the commission, and you're getting the final product.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember back when this was all brought to us, I believe the design was presented to us and we voted on it. We probably just don't remember all these fancy details, to be honest with you, but
We didn't need 45 minutes of explanation either then, I guess.
No,
we're
that's
taking
interesting.
more time changing the color now than we did deciding on approving it.
Yeah, but in addition to soffit, I think the other makes sense. It's a setback, so it's blending better with the house rather than being out front. And again, if the Homes Association and ACA agree with it, I'm not going to say no.
All right, we'll give it a thumbs up. Mhm.
The
I try
homeowner
not to do
association-
things.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, what's
just-
that?
Not just, I try not to do things where I'd be ridiculed for being just ridiculous. And telling you that you can't change this color is one of those categories. So at
Well,
least my mentality is, come on.
I
you know?
appreciate it, but as a homeowner, I do understand as well, because, we certainly wouldn't want somebody in the association to just say, oh, we're going to paint it, bright yellow. So,
That's part of the appeal of
yeah,
that it is a cohesive design in this little cluster development.
And
Um,
we have had, the homeowners have all discussed both the proposal for the picket on top of my fence. In fact, they were all involved in choosing the particular design. And they've all also spoken, we've all spoken about, the color of the trim and also the back panel on Marcia's garage carport. So everybody in the association is supportive of these modifications.
I have a draft in my report, and it is very generic draft resolution here, identifying the project and the associated documents, and indicating that as a condition, all the previous conditions that are in effect remain in effect. And I don't know if anybody would like to make a motion, and perhaps if you wanted to add any of the language that you, I can zoom in that, sorry if it's far. Any language that you wanted to incorporate regarding wall height or anything to that effect.
Well, this is limited to just unit 7, and I think we were trying to say that we ought to make it universal, that we approve any stone fence up to 36 inches and any, and maybe we don't deal with it, and we approve this additional fence that maxes out at 48 inches on unit 7. So I'm not sure how to, I can't see the whole resolution here. Does this just deal with unit 7's wall?
Up above, Ron, those, and we discussed them, those were just the summary of what the various requests were, the change in trim,
Okay,
the carport siding. I wanted to at least have,
okay.
excuse me, have that documented for us to talk about tonight. But I mean, that can be as simple, and when you were talking earlier, I did draft a potential condition as a number 2 to allow 36-inch stone walls surrounding each unit's patio. And
Maximum.
allow a maximum of 36.
And what does the association want us to do on the fencing? Just simply approve the fencing up to 48 inches at this one unit, or give future approval for fencing up to 48 inches?
That's a good question.
I don't think we talked about that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you're comfortable, I mean, to me, I think, as president, where I'm going to have to also be dealing with approvals within the association, it's certainly, I think, helpful to us to have you guys say something, make a statement that says we allow stone walls up to 36 inches. And I kind of like the idea that anything beyond that would have to come back for approval.
Okay.
So like mine has come to you for approval, only because I think you just never know what's going to be proposed, what someone will want to do. So that does, sort of build in a little bit of protection. I don't know. How do people feel about that?
Fine with me, if that's.
Same here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sorry, I was on mute. So we would need a motion at this point.
Yes.
So
I'll
there's
make
about
it. Just-
4 components to it, like a motion to approve the staggered fencing, the carport, the soffit colors, 36-inch stone fencing, stone walls, and then for number 7, approve the wood fencing up to a height of 48 inches.
Correct.
Total height, 48
That-
inches.
Totally, yeah.
Yes, that's the total requested in the application, exactly.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, I move to support the request as presented regarding the staggered fencing, the carport color, and the carport, I guess, whatever covers it, the soffit colors, allow patio walls up to 36, stone walls up to 36 inches. And with respect to unit number 7, I believe, approved the additional 18-inch wood fence on her 30-inch wall.
Right, so at this point, do we have a second?
Yes, I'll
Yes.
second this.
And I know I'm not supposed to speak here, but the one additional thing was the approval of the extension of the patios
Oh,
from 10.
I was gonna say that. I
Yeah,
think-
what is the size that you're asking again?
It's on my, let's see.
Well,
You said it was 10
12
by
by 30.
16 originally, but I never heard what it is now.
12 by 32. So 32 is the length and 12 is the depth.
And is the 32 width within the footprint of the units?
Yes.
Correct. The units, yes, correct.
Otherwise, it's not extending beyond
No.
the unit.
No, the one expands beyond the wall of the unit.
The patio does not extend beyond the width of the units.
And every unit's 32 feet.
Uh,
No,
They'll be
no, the
provided
maximum, the-
drawing, Ron, to document, but they're already all constructed. And they are the exact length of each building.
Okay,
I can't verify the specific number in the middle of the motion because I don't know, but I can tell you that they will be documented in the as-built, the final improvement survey. So we will have those final.
okay. So the additional element to add to the motion would be to allow patios of 12-foot depth, but width of no greater than the footprint of the unit itself.
Yes.
So that they're not extending out beyond the walls.
So I'm just, the only thing is, I do think the walls extend in some cases beyond the width of the house. Not a lot, but in a few in a few cases they do. But the patios themselves, to the best of my knowledge, are the width of the house, the actual cobblestone and bluestone.
Correct. The walls are outside the footprint of the patio. They're not built on top of the patio.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So the patios are the width of the facade, and then the wall is right next to it.
Right.
And these walls are what, about a foot wide or so?
Yeah, something like, I think that's about right.
Again, we don't want to get in a situation, patio within the footprint, but you can also build a wall without having some kind of dimension limit on that, because we don't want the wall being 5 foot wide going down the slope.
Would it be simpler if we tackled that in our HOA bylaws?
I think it would be as simple as to, in your condition of, allowing a maximum of a 36-inch height stone sitting wall surrounding each unit's patio. And that they need to be, any new walls are consistent with the walls as installed, which we have documentation in the photos of them, and we will have documentation in the final improvement surveys. But they're between 12 and 18 inches in depth, these walls.
12 and 18 inches, and yeah, I think that's right.
Because I can show you the photo, Ron, not to rehash this over again.
But just unusual. I see what they've done.
You see, they come on the outside of the patio, some are an end cap that may be a little bit wider. But ultimately you can see that they're pretty much bound, they kind of came around and wrapped. This one looks roughly a foot. But they're not much different than that. Here's that same unit, I believe, but you can see there's a little bit of depth for their outdoor kitchen area. But most of them, they're all consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. there are a
So
couple
the
feet.
the photographs will be part of the record, correct?
All of that, these are all photos from their application materials. So you're approving these patios as shown.
Yeah.
Right.
And any
That-
future patios need to be consistent with this design.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking it would be great if we knew the amount of inches, the greatest amount of inches the furthest stone wall is from a dwelling. And then that could be our starting point for approval,
Patio,
you know?
no more than 2 feet. I mean,
Yeah,
they're,
so
but
maybe
that's-
we're approving the existing walls, but in the future, all patios are no larger than 12 foot in depth, no wider than the footprint of the house, and any wall cannot extend more than 2 feet beyond the footprint of the house.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm a little worried about putting those in because I don't have the measurements of all of them, of being that specific.
Right. Well, I'm a little worried about having a patio that extends
Yeah.
7 to 10 feet because I live in a freestanding condominium development of Windermere, and everybody wants to build their patio 7 feet off the footprint, and we simply don't allow it.
Right.
They did some in the past, and
Yeah.
it really doesn't look good. When I look at your
Right.
photos there, having those walls beyond the edge of the house, I don't think looks good. But telling the next two people they can't do it is.
Would it work to say something like, no larger than the largest existing one?
But then we wouldn't know what our starting point is, 5 years from now.
at this point, we're only talking about 2 units that don't have their patios extended because they're still under construction. So these
Okay,
are existing, and the application request is to approve them as constructed and shown in these photos.
Okay.
Be confirmed by the improvement, the final improvement survey, and that any other future, patios for the general's residence itself, the 2 units at the general's residence, would be consistent and not extend beyond the wall
Right.
of without return to the commission for approval.
right.
And, Aaron, I just think it's kind of, those 2 units though have a unique kind of footprint in the rear. And it's not gonna I'm gonna share one with you.
What did you propose for the patios at these units? Or
It's you, hold on.
and you could even have them as a minor modification,
Yeah, once if you pull that one image, that'll show one. And then the commission, you'll see what I'm kind of referencing. But it goes through Ron, what you're suggesting is no wider than, no bigger than, but just so you can kind of see a little perspective of it, looks very different than every other one.
Mhm.
Okay, this is, that's the front. Aaron, did you receive the email?
You know, it would be smaller rather than bigger.
Yeah, and that's kind of,
let me just pull up the,
If we could see there's something odd about the last 2.
well, it's not really, overly helpful. I don't think this photo is Adam.
Sorry. I'm trying to do it quick to find
A
something.
little alcove within.
Yeah.
So yes, you're gonna infill this, but I think the question is, are you gonna come out beyond this wall?
I need to show you a picture of where that one is. That's the problem I'm looking for. Because with that little alcove, that is a patio.
Mhm.
Right,
So,
which I think is fine and likely identified on the site plan. That's what I'd like to just kind of share is where, you know, your approved site plan here that shows the footprint.
yeah, I'm just trying to be over communicative with respect to,
That would better help the commission.
yeah. Sorry. But in any event, the homeowner was proposing, instead of a patio, just an easier, like a deck to walk out on. That's, I mean, maybe 12 inches off the ground. But once again, I have to show the image to kind of understand.
So that, yeah, and that wasn't included in this initial request. So,
Yeah,
you know,
That's
and
right. That's the point I was going to make. It's not included in the request.
correct. So that would be come back again prior to,
That's
once they
correct.
decide what exactly they want. Okay.
if they have something that they're looking to do that's different, then we can look at that. And determine if that is considered just a minor change that doesn't need, you know, review. It may be something that could just be forwarded on to ACA as far as a material review and be fine. I don't know, you know, at this point, I think we're kind of splitting hairs as far as the patios. I think it could just be put into the record that the patios as constructed, you know, are part of this modification and shown in application documents, and are approved, and any future, you know, walls over 36 inches would need to return to commission. And
That's the way to keep it simple.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
But we also deal with the size of the patio though, 12 by the width. I'm not sure if we're dealing with where the walls are at the moment. of that
are you
patio.
talking about a future patio,
Yeah.
or the ones that are, so there's only 2 units that don't have their patios completed. And if they're changed from what's existing or what's, you know, was originally proposed, then that's considered a modification to the site plan.
So we don't have to worry.
So we don't quite
Correct.
know what those future homeowners are going to want. So we may just want to tackle that at a separate discussion.
I would agree with that.
I would guess they're going to want a pickleball court, but that's possible.
That might be fun.
Like that.
So I
Okay,
think
so
we got into various discussions, so we may need to start a motion again, Ron. Would be so kind.
Okay, so again, I move for approval of the request by the applicant to have staggered fencing, the carport as built, the soffit color change is approved by ACMA. The size of patios increased to 12 foot in depth, and the width of the unit, but as constructed with the existing walls on the units at the moment. And what did I miss?
Anything future or indifferent would have to come back.
Future patio.
And so one question, Amy,
Yes.
is it a reasonable request that you all make these changes in your bylaws or declaration to reflect what you've asked us to do?
So we are working very hard on a lot of things right now. I would say that once we get through our annual meeting next month, then I would then we're looking at items like this that would require changes to our bylaws, basically.
And that,
So-
so I'm tempted to then add that, and that these requested changes, well, I'm not sure they're really bylaw changes. They're really site. So I'll drop that. So.
Okay, so in this motion, are you also just putting that you're approving the Unit 7 fence as proposed?
Yes, and
Okay.
at Unit 7, I knew I was forgetting something. Then Unit 7,
As
the
proposed.
additional 18-inch fence on top of the 30-foot wall,
Okay, great.
as long as the dog likes it.
So now we would just need a second.
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
We haven't voted yet.
I know, but thank you for the motion. It was complex.
All in favor?
Aye.
Favor.
Right.
Okay, motion carries.
All right.
Good.
Thank you all.
Thank
Very
you.
nice job, Alan and Amy. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Amy.
Well, thank you all, and it's
Thank
very
you,
nice
guys.
to meet you.
Really appreciate it. Have a great
Yeah.
night.
Good.
Yeah. If I can.
Okay, the next one should be a little more straightforward here for you. Madam Chair, this next application is 22-29. It's for 8 Scotland Avenue. It's a site plan modification for Bar Boucher, outdoor dining area. Guillaume, who is co-owner of the restaurant, is here to walk you through what they're proposing. And I have some photos and things and the location to assist you, Guillaume, when you're ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam the Chairman, members of the Commission. So I'm Guillaume Travessaz. I'm a co-owner of Bar Boucher and via Apéro LLC, owner of 8 Scotland Avenue in Madison. So as Erin mentioned, she has a couple documents that she can show you, she can share with you. So we're proposing to adding a fire exit door to our patio and closing a small panel, adding a small panel to it. So we are a little bit more enclosed during those cold months that winter. So we're able to have few customers still eating outside. We have big demand for our customer to stay and eat outside. Some of them feel more safe in that way. And our patio as is designed. So the structure stay the same. We're not adding more roof or anything. We're not extending the structure. We're just gonna add a fire exit because if we enclose it with the fire code, we need a proper fire exit. So we review that with the fire marshal. And the fire exit will look at the rear of the building. So we will be extending a little bit the stone from the patio where there's some landscaping. So we'll extend some stones so the door can open properly and people can enter and go in and out in a proper way. So that's what we are proposing. We're gonna match the exact same design, same color. The vinyl, the clear vinyl will start at the same that the actual one. There's no sign on it. The new stone are the same color than the existing one. It will be fire retardant. And I think that's about it.
Got it. Okay. So I'll follow that up with all of your supporting plans and drawings and I think we'll be all set. So this is the site plan. As many of you know, we're just a block, a building in. Here's the gas station on the corner of Scotland and Boston Post Road. And Bar Boucher is located here, right up at the front property line and even over. So this is the existing outdoor dining area, just to familiarize yourself and the existing driveway access. So you can see what the existing outdoor area is right here. And here is the driveway entrance. the siding, and I'll show you a picture of the siding. It is, so this is the extending awning, covers over the entire patio area. There are side enclosures now for the dining area, leaving a portion open. As you can see here, it's not fully enclosed. And so the proposal before you is to fully connect and enclose to the building. And in doing so, that's considered an enclosed restaurant space, and the fire code requires an egress door. It didn't make too much sense to the restaurant owners, the fire marshal, and myself to have the door step directly into the driveway for the restaurant. So the recommendation was to clear an area of roughly 6 feet here of the plantings, add some pavers, and have the door egress out within this area. So you can see the black and gold materials and the existing siding. The existing sides, as you can see, this is the open access along the edge of the awning. Your front is out here. It's a black enclosure on the bottom of umbrella fabric. We've got some yellow and then the clear vinyl. The proposal I can share with you on our next page. Open it up. So this is the area here. It's just over 3 feet. That will be enclosed on the door, and you can see the plan view here, which shows the existing garden area here and the 6-foot space that will be converted into a landing. Yes. Okay, so this is the new door. This is a permanent structure here, and then this is going to mimic the existing siding that we have, and that will allow for the outdoor dining space to be better heated in the winter months. And so that's the extent of the project. Pretty simple. Any questions?
Okay.
So it meets all fire codes.
Yes, it does. Yes, the deputy fire marshal met as well and reviewed this, and this was the proposal that was recommended. And ACA did review this and thought it was consistent with the design and had favorable recommendations.
Good. I think we should support a fine establishment in Madison.
Absolutely.
Touche, absolutely. Reasonable.
So, is this up for discussion? Do we have any comments?
I think you just heard two of them.
But yes, it's a site plan modification that would require a formal vote from the commission.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve this modification to enclose and put the fire door in and make a more permanent structure for the outside dining at Bar Boucher.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor.
Aye.
Okay.
So
Thank
it
you
is.
very much for your time.
Well, thank
Really
you for
appreciate
waiting.
it.
Yeah.
No
Bonsoir.
problem. Anytime. Thank you
Bonsoir.
very much. Bonsoir. Merci beaucoup. Thank you again.
Très bien.
You have a lovely night.
You
Thank you
too.
very much.
So, Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda are minutes that if you're more than welcome to entertain a motion to table those until Elliot is back to man his post as secretary.
I so move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then favorite motion of the night.
Motion to End.
Anyone?
A second. I'll
Okay,
second.
okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for stepping
you.
up.
Bye.
You did a
Thanks,
great
guys.
job.
Thanks, Giselle.
Hey, every
Great.
time they said Madam Chair, I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
That's
you're
right.
modest.
That's why that's why sometimes I
Giselle.
didn't respond. I'm like, oh yeah.
You're modest.
Okay.
Thank you,